Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're back for a second episode of long form content where today we're going to dive into Major League Baseball. We're going to talk about some surprise teams, some disappointing teams, and then we're going to talk about pitchers because I love pitching stuff. I'm a pitching nerd. Pitching is fun, pitching is an art form, and I can talk about that all day. So that's what we're going to do in some form or fashion today. Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it. There's a lot to talk about on that pitching side, so I'm excited to get into that conversation.
Absolutely. But first, let's talk about some teams that have surprised us, starting with the Tampa Bay Rays. We all knew that they were
Ooh,
going to be pretty decent, but like not this good. They
yeah, they've
have
been
won more than
man.
double the games that they've lost. They're currently sitting at 48 and 22 at the time of making this. The Pacoda projections has them at 97 and 65 the rest of the way, but it wouldn't shock me at all if they won north of 100 games,
They
and
could,
they're
yeah,
just a well-oiled machine, especially with the offense the way that that is turned out with guys like
yeah,
Yandy Diaz and Isaac Paredes, who you don't exactly expect to have huge seasons offensively. They've been putting up some really big numbers, and the pitching, like usual, is fantastic. Shane
yeah.
McClanahan is the front runner for the AL Cy Young. Tyler Glasnow is back, and he is such a joy to watch. They signed Zach Eflin to a pretty hefty, not hefty, but I think it was like $10 million over 3 or 4 years. But it was a sizable financial commitment, and he has
Yeah.
absolutely returned on investment.
Yeah.
And the Rays have just been rolling.
Yeah, I think the big thing for them is we knew, like, even from the beginning, seeing what that starting rotation could do, like we knew their pitching was going to be good. But the like you said, the offensive side of the ball has brought them into much better balance than I think anyone
Mm-hmm.
really expected out of them. And that's allowed them to win, a lot more games than, we may have thought. And they obviously started out super hot. They kind of cooled off for a bit, and now they're, kind of finding their positive groove back again where they're winning more than they lose, and getting back into the stride of things. But yeah, they're really impressive.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for
I mean,
sure,
we've
dude.
said how important, that long-term success, that how important pitching is. And for them, that's going to be what keeps them at the top of the league within, top three record wise, probably throughout most of the season.
Yeah, with the Rays and pitching, it just goes hand in hand. They find these pitchers that haven't really done,
They have a
very
history of
well,
that. Yeah.
and then they bring them over and then they fix them, and then it's like,
I don't know
hey,
what it is.
these guys are all stars now. Like they did it with Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam and Andrew Kittredge, and like they managed to fix Jake Diekman, who came over after being terrible for the White Sox, and now he's found something that he just didn't have in Chicago or Boston over the last few years. It's
Something in the water in Tampa.
I guess there is. And the young stars are absolutely phenomenal to watch.
Yeah.
Wander Franco and Randy Rosarena are two guys that are still very young, still very, very fun. And
They're super fun for baseball. Yeah.
mhm, yeah, it's good for baseball. It just sucks that Tampa plays in a dump at the Trop, and
Yeah.
if they weren't winning, they would probably move. I'm not gonna lie, because they're fun, they're exciting, and that puts butts in the seats as Oakland can probably draw. I mean, although I will say Oakland is on a 7 game winning streak, and in that
Yes.
time they
And they're
just
in
beat
a
Tampa in a series
yeah,
at
and
Oakland.
they're also in a very interesting place organizational wise and with their fan base with,
With their reverse boycott.
yes, their reverse
That was
boycott
so
and
fun
trying
to
to get
see,
fans
dude.
back in the stadium. I mean, yeah, it's super cool, and it's, great to see because there were some years of
Hmm.
absolutely fantastic Oakland A's, baseball and fan presence. They had some crazy times
Like
there,
especially
and that's kind of died
recently.
away a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we made an episode about the Athletics moving to Vegas. So if you haven't watched that, I'm gonna plug that now so you can go watch that.
go
But
watch that.
let's look at some other surprise teams. The Baltimore Orioles, they've been a lot
Yeah,
better than anybody ever expected them to be. If
for sure.
with like 70 games into the season, if you would have told me that they would have been above 40 wins and under 25 losses, I would have told you were crazy. But here they are. The young guys are doing their darn thing. Adley's a
Yeah,
superstar. Gunnar Henderson is coming around. Guys like Anthony Santander, they're mashing, they're hitting the ball well. The starting pitching still isn't great. Tyler
Yeah,
Wells has been really surprising for them on the hill. But what makes them so good is the bullpen. Felix Bautista and Yenier Cano is a 1-2 punch.
yeah.
That's an automatic win in the eighth and ninth. And yeah, Yenier Cano doesn't exactly have a goose egg for a whip like he did in the first like month of the season, but that's
No.
still a very, very, very formidable 1-2 punch in the back end.
Yeah, I mean, even though the starting pitchers aren't great, is when you have a bullpen like that, the ability to win close games is so, so important because you're not always going to have enough out of your offense to, put up 7, 8 runs and have all that insurance coming into your bullpen. Sometimes you have a lot of those 1, 2 run games. And if you have that combo of back end guys that can just shut games down, when you put those guys in 9 times out of 10, they're going to get the job done. That's really a comforting spot for an organization to be in. And that's what's been great for them. And like you said, those young guys, they are the key to that team. We knew that going into the season, it was kind of all going to surround what those young guys were able to do. How many of them were going to be able to step up and make, those significant contributions? And they've surprised a lot of people, and they've turned into some very, very solid play. So if they're able to keep these guys together, potentially, try to work on starting pitching going forward, we could
In
see
a
an Orioles
few
team that's
years. In a
yeah,
few
exactly.
years.
Once again, you got to give it time, but you're seeing the foundation being actively built and what that has meant for that organization because it's been a long time coming.
Tim, if we had like a book it for every single episode, my book it for this episode is that the Baltimore Orioles miss the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make it, especially with how tough the AL
Yeah,
East has been. Um, I
yeah, no
don't
kidding.
I don't think they're going to keep up this pace.
Yeah, the
There's
problem is
there's
the
going to be some
consistency.
bumps in the road. Although they will get some reinforcements at some point because John Means is coming back from Tommy John surgery at around the All-Star break.
Yeah.
That's going to be big for them. When Grayson Rodriguez finally gets called back up from Norfolk and like finally figures it out because he was up for a little bit and it
Mm,
didn't go well. He just like the stuff is there. They just sent him down to kind of like refigure it out. DL
yeah.
Hall is gonna be another guy that's gonna be pretty big for them if he develops. So like not yet. All I'm gonna say, not yet. I
Mm.
know it sounds like, oh,
And that's fair.
they're doing
I
so
mean,
well right now and they're getting more,
yeah.
so they're only gonna get better. That's not quite how baseball works because baseball is a
No, it
game of
really
ebbs
isn't.
and flows. You just kind
Especially
of
when you
have to
have like
ride the waves when it lasts.
the length of season that the MLB is, you are going to have, your ups and downs, especially when you have a team with so many young guys. You're
Mhm.
you're going to have stretches of greatness and you're going to have stretches where, they start to struggle a bit and they got to refigure things back out. So, yeah, I don't expect them to continue on this trajectory and, have an amazing season, but it is promising for them that they have played this well so far.
Yeah, it's not linear, and I
Yeah.
I think they may invest at the trade deadline. I think they could be in a position to be trade deadline buyers.
Yeah, they definitely could.
However, I think it'll be in a position to keep adding for the future because this hot stretch
Yeah.
at the beginning of the season is a taste of what's to come. It's not an indicator of what they are this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And another team that I think is like that is the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're sitting at 41
Mm.
and 26, and they have one of the best records in the National League, the entire NL, which is really, really surprising.
Really weird. Although
Season,
I would say a lot of the National League has been kind of weirdly surprising, both
yeah,
on positive and negative sides.
yeah, we don't know what baseball is. MLB is just kind of an anomaly, and that's why it's always impossible to predict. But that's
Yeah.
also what makes it so fun. But talking about Arizona, they're just a really, really well-rounded team. They won't have a lot of names that jump off the page. I think
Yeah.
two, Corbin Carroll and Zach Gallen, but that's
Yeah.
really about it. If you're a casual follower of baseball, and if you can name me like any other guy outside of like Merrill Kelly, who's having a surprisingly good year,
Yeah.
like on the
Exactly.
Arizona Diamondbacks, then I don't know, like maybe Ketel Marte, but the point being is they've been doing it without these big name guys,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what makes it so impressive. I'm not 100% banking on them to like be contenders, make a playoff
Yeah.
push. I think it's a little bit too soon. you stay the course. And I buy Arizona being in a playoff position more than I buy Baltimore at the trade
Hmm.
deadline. I think Arizona, because of how fundamentally sound they are
Yeah.
in like every aspect of the game, there's not one aspect that they do really poorly. They're just a really solid team. Because if you think about it in the aggregate, they hit well, they run well, they field well, they pitch well. Their bullpen has been pretty solid, but none of
Yeah.
them will be like the class of the NL West, much less
Yeah.
like Major League Baseball.
They have a lot of good enough. And
Hmm.
that's, has allowed them to win, 41 games thus far.
Which is something you
But like
build
you
on.
said, yeah, for sure. That balance is really good. I think it's more important in my mind, at least. Obviously, I have not done a lot of, studying of some of like the best Major League Baseball teams and how their teams are made up. But I mean, I do think balance is important. Yeah, I know you obviously this is your ballpark, literally and figuratively. But I do think that balance
Boo.
is important.
I'm the book it guy, Tim. You're the pun guy. That's
I
kind of
know
what we're establishing.
I have the absolute worst puns in the world, but I'm gonna keep firing them because I do not care.
Quite
But
the wordsmith.
for the Diamondbacks, I think they're another team. I agree with you in I like their position better than I like the Orioles. And part of it also is what we've seen out of the NL so far. I think that they have a
Hmm.
much better chance of being in a more favorable position come the All-Star break, just because of the fact that the balance that they have, they don't have nearly, that substantial amount of young talent. They have a lot more guys that have at least, been around for a bit more. Um,
Not to say
and I
that the young
think
talent isn't there, and it like because it's
no, it
coming. It's
definitely is. Yeah.
absolutely coming. It's just it's not as flashy.
Yeah.
With the exception of Corbin Carroll, because I don't think it gets more flashy than Corbin Carroll, but like everyone else, I don't it's
Yeah.
just like get the
They
job
they're
done.
they are a team that is definitely sort of flying under the radar in how solid they have been
Hmm.
playing thus far. Because you really don't hear much about the Diamondbacks, because like you said, they don't have a lot of those big name guys.
Yeah, and a team that we have heard of and does have a lot of big name guys, the Texas Rangers, the champions of the offseason. But like most of the time when you give a team the label champions of the offseason, it doesn't work. This has actually been working for
Yeah.
Texas, 41 and
Yeah.
25 thus far. In two off seasons ago, you go get Corey Seager and you go get Marcus Simeon, both of whom have been absolutely phenomenal. They're centerpieces for a long, long time. And then this previous offseason, you invest in pitching. You go get Jacob
Yeah.
deGrom. God rest his soul. He's not dead. He's just going to be out until
I was gonna
2025.
say, wait a minute, let's slow our roll here. He's alive. He's okay. He's just hurt again.
Yeah, again, more on that later. We're going to talk
Yeah.
a lot
We'll
more
we'll,
about
we'll
that
run
later.
through that.
We'll revisit that, but you go sign Nathan Evaldi, you go get Andrew Heaney, you go get you extend Martin Perez after his really good year. You have these guys that create a really solidly run rotation, and then
Yeah.
the bullpen is where it's kind of surprising because you get like the career revival of Will Smith, not that Will Smith, the other Will Smith. No, I'm talking like the other Will Smith, the pitcher
Yeah.
Will Smith, not the catcher Will
We
Smith, and
really
not
need
the
to
artist
stop.
Will Smith.
We need to stop naming kids Will with the last name of Smith. If you got the last name Smith, give him a fun, goofy, wild name,
Bill.
please. Oh, Jesus. William Smith.
Squilliam Fancy Son. No, but the Texas Rangers just have a lot of young stars in the lineup as well, like Josh Jung, Jonah Heim, Adolis Garcia, Leody Taveras is a name that has been really, really good for them.
Yep.
Nathaniel Lau, like they have,
I think the Rangers successfully did what the Mets wanted to do.
they
Bring
did.
in guys to accentuate the talent that they kind of have just waiting around in their wings. It it's worked particularly well for the Rangers. It has not for the Mets, and we'll talk about them later in disappointment.
It's a
But
fun blend of veterans and young
yeah,
guys because the veterans and guys like Seager and Simeon, then you have the young guys in like Josh Jung, Garcia, Tavera, like these guys have the fun blend. And if there's one team that we've talked about so far outside of Tampa, like out of Baltimore, Texas, and Arizona, I'll buy that Texas is going to stick and be a
Yeah,
player in the playoff
I would
picture.
agree with that.
You know,
And it's the way that guys have stepped up into their roles, whether
mhm.
it be, the guys that they brought in to fill some of those spots, the guys that they had on the team that they've been trying to build up. Like it seems like that's a team that has a lot of guys that fit into their role and know their role and play their role very well.
Know your role and shut your mouth. We
I
got,
don't know if the Rangers are much of talkers, but they sure play pretty well.
yeah, the last team we have that has really surprised us is the Miami Marlins. These
Yeah.
guys are a pitching factory. Every pitcher that they pump out seems to work, even when Sandy Alcantara isn't having his Cy Young season, which don't get me wrong, like he's certainly not. But then you have 20-year-old Yuri Perez that's basically mini Sandy, and Jesus Luzardo has been really good, and
Yeah.
Braxton Garrett has been really, really good. And then you have Trevor Rogers coming back. And
Very
then
solid rotation.
of course, in the bullpen, you get Sir AJ Hockey Puck back. He is lights out in the ninth inning. I really like watching him pitch.
Yeah.
But the fact that the lineup has come together has been the
Yeah.
biggest factor so far, and it starts with Luis Arias, who, if he hits 400,
Oh my
do you give
gosh,
him the
that dude can
National League
hit.
MVP automatically? And here's the thing about Luis Arias. He doesn't have very fast bat speed. I think he's at the bottom of the league in terms of like bat
Yeah.
speed.
He just knows where to put the bat.
He works the count well, he
Yeah.
sees pitches really well, and he hits to all fields. When that trade happened in the offseason where Miami sent Pablo Lopez to Minnesota and Minnesota sent Luis Arias to Miami, that is the definition of what a trade should be, a
Yeah.
win-win for both teams, because Luis Arias' impact in Miami cannot be understated. He has been an integral part of that team so far. But on the other side, Pablo Lopez has turned into an ace in what is a really solid and formidable Minnesota rotation. Because you got Pablo Lopez, Sonny Gray, Louis Varland, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober, and then you have Kenta Maeda coming back relatively soon. So like
Yeah.
that's a quick little blurb about Minnesota's rotation. I like watching the Twins pitch because they could throw up a good performance on any given day. But what Luis Arias has meant to Miami, it filled a hole that they desperately needed. It also helps that guys like Jorge Soler are mashing the ball. Brian De La Cruz has been really good. Gene
Yeah.
Segura at third base. Like he was a middle infield. He was a shortstop and second baseman, but Gene Segura's been pretty good at the hot corner for the most part. I like the future of the Miami Marlins. I think if you just let them build and not tear it down for the umpteenth
Yeah.
time in franchise history, I think you could actually have something that is semi-sustainable. But baseball's fun in South Beach, dude.
For sure. And obviously, I mean, this is refreshing to see from a Marlins team that, like you said, I mean, they've gone through cycle and cycle of trying to rebuild and retool and throwing guys around and trading guys, releasing guys, all that stuff. But they have done a very good job, I think, with they're another team, the guys that they got to fill certain positions or the pieces that they've moved around have worked very, very well for them. We've seen teams go make moves, whether it be trades or signings that haven't worked out very well. It seems like the Marlins haven't missed yet, seemingly, with a lot of the moves that they've made. And
Well, no
just
team's infallible, but the moves have worked
no.
out better for the Marlins than I think
Yeah.
most expected. Me
Oh, for
personally,
sure.
I had them at 81 and 81. I think that may be right around where they end up, maybe even a little bit better.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
this Marlins team, I didn't buy completely in on, but I knew they were going to be a player in the
They're
NL
definitely
East that
improved.
they wouldn't be walked over. They were clearly
Yeah.
the fourth best team in the division.
I mean, nobody can predict or project Luis Arias batting around 400. I mean, in this day and age, that is almost unheard of
Like he
in
won the
terms
batting
of
title by hitting around 320, and he's gotten that much better.
yeah, it's
It's awesome
crazy.
to see, and Marlins baseball has been fun to watch. But on a different note, let's talk about some teams that have disappointed. And I
Yay.
would be remiss if we didn't talk about our two favorite teams,
Yippee.
Me with the Boston Red Sox, and Tim, you with the Chicago Cubs. Starting with Boston, it's actually better than it was last year, but there are still some very frustrating lapses. They're currently
Yeah.
sitting at 33 and 35, and they just lost a series at home against the Colorado Rockies, which is like not a
Yeah.
good it
That's not
right.
a pretty series loss.
Like the tale of the Boston Red Sox is their last two series have been a series win at New York against the Yankees, which like yay, like woohoo, like you
Yeah.
celebrate
That's
that no
that's
matter what your
significant.
record
Yeah.
is, and then you're kind of brought back down to earth with losing to the Rockies. I really hope that we don't get swept. That would really suck, but the same woes have
Yeah.
plagued the Red Sox. The offense is better than advertised, actually, which I thought that was going to be a strength. It's become like a super strength. They're like, at least up until last week, they were one of the best offenses in the MLB. They haven't exactly brought the
And
bats.
then whee.
Yeah, they haven't exactly brought the bats lately, but this offense
Yeah.
can explode at any moment. It's the pitching, though. When
Yeah.
Chris Sale got hurt, my God, he was back. He was throwing
He's
like an
another
ace. He
he's another guy. I don't know.
Oh, what's it
I
gonna
don't know what to do with him.
take? I don't know either. What's it
How
gonna
do you
take
keep
for
him
Chris Sale to
healthy?
be healthy?
Start throwing righty? I don't know.
Well, an issue from
Yeah.
last year that was really, really fixed was the bullpen with Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin in the eighth and the ninth. That is something that I have been really pleased about.
Yeah.
We just need more pitching. We just need more pitching. It's not going to happen this year, especially with how tough and historically good the AL East has been. Just stay the
The AL
course.
East is big tough.
Big tough. And then the Chicago Cubs, they're sitting at
Yeah.
29 and 37.
I'm
And
gonna be honest, this isn't that surprising to me though.
to you, to
Yeah.
you,
To
because
me
there are some
personally.
Cubs fans out there that predicted even over 500.
Yeah.
Over 500 was a very common prediction that I saw amongst Cubs fans. And I
No.
almost wanted to smack some sense
It's
into
the
them because this is
consistency.
not an over 500 baseball team.
No.
This Chicago Cubs
Especially
teams
the pitching staff.
is the most extreme version of the hills and valleys because they're
Yeah.
like they'll play really well for a week and then they'll play like crap for a week and they'll play really well for a
Hmm.
week. So you take Cubs fans on this insane roller coaster ride where like it's like you're in a roller coaster, but you have like a shield or a hood where you can't see the next few turns over them.
Yeah.
So you're
You have no
you're just
idea
kind of
what's
being
next.
whipped around like
Yeah.
randomly. Marcus Stroman is an interesting case in and of itself because he's leading the
Yeah.
National League in ERA. He's leading the National League in ERA plus. He's pitching lights out. He hasn't had a bump in the road, which it will happen. It will
Yeah.
happen.
No,
Marcus
I'm sure
Stroman
it will.
will get hit, and when he gets hit, he'll get hit hard. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
right now. It happened with Spencer Strider. It happened with Zach Gallen. It happened with Garrett Cole. It happens with all of the league's best pitchers. Nobody's infallible. Not
No,
even
not at
Marcus
all.
Stroman. But he has pitched really, really well. And there's been some contention there where Marcus Stroman wants to be extended, and the Cubs are not talking to him. They are not opening up that possibility at the moment,
Yeah,
which
I mean,
could
I
Marcus
think I
Stroman be
think that is
potentially dealt at the deadline?
I don't know. I feel like that would be a little bit difficult based on his contract. I think for the Cubs specifically, I think they kind of want to see where this goes a little bit before they
He's
open up
got one
those
more year
talks.
left. He's
Yeah.
got one more year left on a 3-year, $71 million deal. And here's the thing about Marcus Stroman. If you don't deal him, would you want to extend him anyway? Because he's going to be going into his age 34 season
Yeah.
when his
That's the
next
risk.
contract starts. And if you want to pay him more than the $23.7 million he's making right now, taking him into his mid to late 30s, would you like, is it even worth it? For me,
Yeah.
as somebody who doesn't like Marcus Stroman anyway, no, let other
I
some
would
dumb
agree
like
with
dumb
you.
team let some other dumb team pick him up and give him the money because
Yeah.
Stroh's probably going to want like $25 million, which
Yeah. With the way that he's been
thanks.
throwing, he is going to bring a pretty penny to the table. And
Because
I don't think the Cubs, where they are at as a team, I don't think that's the kind of extension or signing that they need right now. You are not building for, okay,
yeah,
we need like the next 2 years of like good baseball out of a 34, 35-year-old. They need to get more options. They need to get more younger guys to add on to the core that they have. Stroman is not going to be the guy that brings them back to the promised land. That's not in the
God
cards for the
no.
Cubs in the next couple of years. So I don't think he's going to keep pitching like this for the rest of the year. He's
But
done well. He's done surprisingly
yeah,
well, because I
yeah.
have not been a big Marcus Stroman fan either. But I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think it's worth it for them as an organization to put their money there. So I would not necessarily, as a Cubs fan, I would not necessarily be opposed to seeing him dealt at the deadline. I would be interested to see what teams would
Because
actually do that.
you could get a decent package for a Marcus
Oh
Stroman
yeah.
that is pitching well. And
And yeah, especially
here's
if
the
he's
thing.
playing up until the deadline, if he's playing well still, then yeah.
With Spencer Strider's blowups, it leads me to think that Marcus Stroman is the odds-on favorite for the National League Cy Young right now, as it stands. Is he going to win the NL Cy Young? No.
No.
And that is not a book it, because a book it is a relatively hot take, and I don't think
That's
that is a
I don't
hot
think it's much
take
of
at
a hot
all.
take.
Yeah,
No.
that somebody other than Marcus Stroman will win the National League Cy Young. But when Marcus Stroman hits free agency, Marcus Stroman thinks about Marcus Stroman a lot. And Marcus Stroman thinks very highly of Marcus
Of
Stroman.
Marcus Stroman.
So I think $25 million a year. I think he's going to ask for more than that. His ego's too big. He has too much pride not to ask for more. And
yeah,
it's going to suck, because if the Cubs pony up and pay him the money, I think they're going to get locked into another Jason Hayward situation when he starts to go. When you have guys like Justin Steele and Hayden Wesneski and like a few prospects, like Ben Brown is getting ready to be called up here in a bit.
I think you can get more out of a deal in terms of building for the future, in terms of production, than you will out of whatever contract that he is going to ask. Because like you said, he is going to ask for a pretty large yearly deal. And I don't think, because in my opinion, the reason why I didn't like the Stroman signing in the first place that much is not because I thought Stroman was a bad pitcher. It is the inconsistency. It was the fact that they signed him after, like the
which is ironic, because like people who haven't paid attention to Marcus Stroman his whole career will go, well, Marcus Stroman has been the most consistent thing in Major League Baseball on the mound, bar none, because he has been solid to excellent in every single start. But across his career with the Blue Jays, he's been very up and down. Even with the Mets, he was very up and down. His first season with Chicago wasn't really deserving of that kind of money. Now it is. The second season is,
for sure. But
with Marcus
once
Stroman,
again, when is the drop going to hit?
Do you think it's going to last? When? We think no. So more disappointing teams that we're going to look at in Major League Baseball, the Chicago White Sox. We're not going to spend too much time on this one.
What else is new?
They've generally stayed the course over the last update that we made on them. We made a What's Wrong with the Chicago White Sox video, so go check that one out as well. It's the same crap, although Dylan Cease is pitching better. He has been figuring it out, and he's
nobody else is though.
Yeah, he's a tweak away from becoming the Cy Young candidate, and the guy that I picked to win the American League Cy Young, because the guy that I picked to win the American League Cy Young, that Dylan Cease has not shown up. So can the real Dylan Cease please stand up? But taking a trip down I-55, we're going to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals and what an absolute dumpster fire they have been.
They're so bad. What are they, losers of 5 straight now, I think?
27-41 as of the recording of this video, and it has not been pretty. Normally the Cardinals have had, like, they've been so fundamentally good, and they've just found a way to win using their devil magic. The magic is gone, and it's just devil. Like, they're just in baseball hell right now, because they have a solid chunk of talent. Like, they have some pretty big names: Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker. And like on the
They've
mound,
got guys, but the
yeah,
problem is those guys are
you have like
it's the
Jack
inconsistency.
Flaherty and Miles Michaelis and the
Yeah.
dried old bones of Adam Wainwright. And it's
How
like
is he still playing?
because he wants to.
Oh
Um,
well, yeah.
I'm
I
just
think
gonna
they
I'm
they
gonna
just
put
have a
this
lot
out
of
there
guys.
as an explanation for why the Cardinals have been so terrible.
Wilson Contreras.
No, no, no. It's not Wilson Contreras. It's the guy who Contreras replaced.
Oh yeah, no. The whole Yadier Molina situation and like with Contreras coming in and the fan base from as far as I mean, I don't follow the Cardinals very much. But they kind of haven't seem to appreciate the fact of him struggling upon arriving. They haven't seemed to give him much of a chance, and he's
There
not
was like an
responding to it well.
experiment where like Jack Flaherty and Adam Wainwright took Wilson Contreras aside, and you're like, yeah, we don't want you to catch anymore. We're just gonna have you be like an $87.5 million designated hitter and have Andrew Knizner catch,
And
which didn't make any sense to me. He's
well,
back
and
behind the
Contreras
plate,
isn't even hitting that well either.
but like, I don't know. The Cardinals are an absolute mess, and where do they go from here? Normally I have a solution for these teams as to like if they're underperforming, like what's the, like for Boston, they're underperforming, get more starting pitching. The
Yeah.
Chicago Cubs get a better bullpen and
The Cardinal
stay
solution
the
is play
course.
better.
Yeah, the Cardinals, I
They
don't
just
know
need
if
to
I
play
have a
better.
solution.
They've got guys. You talk about those guys that are on their roster. They've got, some of their star level players that just aren't playing up to their standards, both offensively and
It's
defensively, mostly on offense.
it's the same thing with
Um,
the New York Mets, dude. They're at 31
yeah,
and
they
36,
have the
and
guys.
the thing is Cohen spent so
Mhm.
so much money. I think their payroll's up like $350 million.
It's insane.
It's
But like that's what I
nuts.
talked about is like the Mets tried to do what the Rangers have succeeded in doing,
Like
but it has not worked
theoretically,
out for the Mets.
throwing money at everything that moves works, but
Eventually, you think eventually something's gonna stick and you're gonna get somebody that plays pretty well, but they haven't really gotten too much of that in terms of
let's
consistency of
think about their big money investments that they made. Edwin
yeah.
Diaz went down with a patellar tendon tear
Oh,
during the WBC. May
I
come
still
back in
hate that
September.
happened. Yeah,
Maybe. That doesn't mean we
maybe.
ban the WBC. We had this conversation months ago. Do not ban the WBC. Everybody takes it super duper seriously except
Yeah.
America. It's an America problem, not a WBC problem. America, fix yourself. Fix yourself. Boo. But the other Mets big money investments, Francisco Lindor, 10 years, $341 million,
Hmm.
has not played up to the billing
No.
at all. On offense, he's been mid to bad. Defense, that is not his calling card anyway.
Yeah.
Brandon Nimmo, 9 for 162. He's been there. He's existing. He's doing his darn thing. You guys like Starling Marte, who's been bad. Mark Canna has been bad. The pitching staff,
Verlander has
Justin
struggled.
Verlander has absolutely struggled, and
Yeah.
Max Scherzer has struggled. They're the two
Yeah.
highest paid pitchers in the league, and they're on the same
Yep.
team. They're making $87 million
Well,
combined
let's see. I'm gonna go
this
check.
year.
As of right now, Verlander and Garrett Cole are in a matchup against each other right now. Or it's I think it's past them both pitching probably. But let's see
Well,
how Verlander's done today.
yeah. And I mean, I'll talk more about the Mets paying situation while you do that. Like you have guys like Jose Quintana, he's on the 60-day IL. And then
I forget that
Kodai
he's still around.
Kodai Senga has probably been the best part of that rotation, and he's a
Yeah.
fat cherry bomb. Kodai Senga goes as the forkball goes. When the forkball is there, you'll get games where he racks up 10, 12 strikeouts, and when it's not,
Yeah.
he'll get battered around the ballpark. So Kodai Senga is a cherry bomb in and of its own right. And
Yeah.
it's meet the Mets. Meet the Mets, and Frank the Tank doesn't put it perfectly. He exaggerates, obviously, but that's why it makes it funny to watch. I actually
Yeah,
have
you
a
know it.
funny Frank the Tank story that I heard on a separate podcast earlier. Frank the Tank was at the Mets Yankees game,
Yeah.
and Steve Cohen was walking out of the stadium. And Frank the Tank, of course, being this diehard Mets fan, goes, "Oh, Mr. Cohen, can I get a picture?" And Steve Cohen goes, "No." Also,
No.
Also, be nice to us. And
Oh, you're not giving him much to be nice about him, to be honest.
no, and I mean all the Mets want is a winner, but
Yeah.
that's the
Well,
state of the Mets right now,
currently
man.
currently the Mets are locked in a 3-3 tie in the top of the eighth. Verlander actually did have a pretty solid game. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts.
That's not bad.
So that
That's not
that
bad.
is good for what he's been putting up lately. I did actually see a little bit of his pitching early.
I
The
mean,
thing for Verlander,
he's making his age in $1 million, so there's
yeah,
that.
yeah, he's in his 6 innings, he threw 107 pitches. The big thing is he's working counts a lot. And at his age, I feel like you want to try to not pitch 100 pitches per outing. If you can avoid
Well,
it, but
if you can avoid it, but like he's still a competitor, so I don't think
yeah,
that makes the leash any shorter, especially for a guy as tenured as Verlander and
yeah.
Scherzer for that matter.
I
But
think they just need more consistency and better performances out of
they
their
just
top
need to be more
guys.
better.
They do. Once again, they're a team that has all of the pieces that we know what they can do. They just have not been doing the thing.
Same thing with Slam Diego, and the Padres have been looking better
Yeah.
as of late, but they
Yeah, but they
didn't
struggle to start.
start well. Xander Bogaerts has not been Xander Bogaerts. He's hitting around like 250, 260 last time I checked, and they signed him to
Yeah.
that long-term deal. Manny Machado struggled early before he had that broken hand and he went on the IL. Juan Soto struggled early. Juan Soto's back to being Juan Soto. And
Yeah.
then Fernando Tatis has been the best thing about this Padres offense, but you have guys like Ha-Seong Kim not playing up to their standards. Jake Cronenworth is not playing up to his standards. Trent Grisham is not playing up to his standards.
Yeah.
And you have all of these guys where the expectations are so high, and especially in like in the pitching staff, for example, Joe Musgrove, he took a little bit of time to figure it out. Now he's back
Yeah.
to being his usual self. Yu Darvish, super consistent. Yu Darvish throws 13 billion bajillion different pitches. Cool. He's still,
I'm expecting him to pull out like a palm ball next.
he might know how to throw a palm ball, actually.
He probably
If you
does.
if you asked
That
him in
dude can throw.
Japanese, he could probably do it. Blake Snell is looking less and less like the Cy Young Blake Snell.
Yeah.
And
He's fading a bit.
it's just the Padres are an interesting situation. What I want to talk about with the Padres is their financial situation because they've placed so much money and AJ Preller has spent so much. The payroll's like 250 million, and that's without paying Juan Soto. And he has a year or two
Yeah.
left of team control. So I'm gonna propose, could Juan Soto get traded again? I think there is a very distinct possibility with how much
Yeah.
money the Padres are spending, how much money they have committed elsewhere, because you have
Yeah.
blockbuster deals with Soto, not Soto. Soto's the one guy you don't have the blockbuster deal with. Bogarts, Tatis, Machado again. You extended Darvish. You're gonna have to pay Josh Hader when that comes up.
Yeah.
Musgrove is probably going to want more money when that's like you have so many big contracts allocated elsewhere. There's going to be some pieces that are the odd men out unless you want to do the Mets thing and say screw the luxury tax, but nobody's ever done that. And Steve Cohen is an
Yeah.
ultra billionaire. So like what is a Padre to do?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is you have to have a team then that not only has the assets in terms of players and whatnot to give up, but also then has the money to have the intention of signing him to that big deal. And there are probably teams out there that fit that mold. I can't think of any off the top of my head that I think would be, likely trade suitors. I think it's possible, because like you said, it's going to be hard for them to get that deal for him. But once again,
Nothing set in
another
stone.
trade for him,
This is
another
not
trade for him would be big
Yeah,
stuff.
yes, it is. This is speculation. This is only purely
Yeah.
rumor. And this is just me looking at the Padres' financial situation, looking at how their team is built, and going, I can see this happening.
It's very
So
possible.
the next thing we're going to talk about is the increase in pitchers' health and arm injuries.
Yeah, it's been such a weird ride over the past. I mean, you could look as small as the last couple of years and as big as the last like 5 to 10 years,
Hmm.
and seeing the increase in so many of these serious injuries. And it's a kind of a matter of like the why, because has baseball or has pitching changed that significantly?
I think I think yes to both because it's the fun part about pitching is looking at that why. Why
Yeah.
is a guy so good? Why is a guy not doing as well as he should?
Why is a
Why
guy so injury prone?
why is a guy
Jacob deGrom.
yeah, and we're going to use Jacob deGrom to pinpoint this. And it's
Yeah.
an interesting case study with Jacob deGrom because if you look at the numbers across the years, his like as he's gotten more dominant, as his strikeouts have gone up, he's thrown harder and he's become more precise, but he hasn't had very many bodily changes. And I understand that's a weird way of wording it, but at 6'4",
Yeah.
180, it's much more sustainable to throw
Yeah.
94 like he did in
Yeah.
2014 than 99 like he's throwing now. And that's an average. So you'll see him touch
Yeah.
101, 102. And
Yeah, that's
when he first entered the league, his fastball averaged 94. In 2023, his slider averages 92.
that's
And in
it's
20 and
crazy.
last year, his
His
slider
body
averaged
can't keep up.
93. No. And that's part of it. Pitching a baseball, you exert forces on your elbow every single time, even if you don't throw 90 miles an hour, that your body is
Yeah.
not naturally meant to exert. So every
It's
time
not
you
a
throw
natural
90
motion, no.
plus, you have a chance of tearing something in your elbow because of just the rotation. And like even
Yeah,
this is like
it's a very
ah.
awkward, yeah, it's an awkward motion, and when you're
Yeah,
putting your
in the
body through
shoulder,
that much stress,
and the elbow. So what pitchers do in the weight room is they build up their joints and their
yeah.
muscles and their bodies and the
And once
entire
again,
system.
I'm sure that Jacob deGrom has worked so hard on that stuff because it has just been
Absolutely.
injury after injury for him. So
Hmm.
you know he has to put so much work in of building that up so he can get back to that healthy point.
His last
But
full season was 4 years ago. I'm not
yeah, and
counting
it's just
2020 because
it's
of pandemic, but he was injured in
yeah,
21, injured in 22, and now he's injured now. And this is his second Tommy John. He had one in 2010.
yeah.
Um, so it sucks. I mean, at least he's getting paid well. He's getting paid into his
Yeah.
late 30s, but he doesn't care. You saw the presser. He
Yeah,
was
he
so
dude just
upset.
wants to play, and, and
Hmm.
and once again for his situation, you think about how many injuries he's been. The fact that he continues to essentially work back from these injuries to get to play shows how much he doesn't just care about the money. If he cared about the money, he could sign the deal and then he'd be like,
Hmm.
okay,
And then the Rangers are
arm is
locked in
bothering
and there's
me.
nothing you can do
Let
about
me
it. And it's like,
yeah, let me
ah,
sit out. But
hmm,
dude wants to play so
yeah,
bad,
of
and
course.
it's so tough to see because to me he is one of the more or most likable, super talented pitchers in the league, even super talented players.
There's a
He's a
conversation for most dominant pitcher of our generation, and
yeah. When he is healthy and playing, his arm
better than
talent, what
Verlander,
he can
better
throw,
than Scherzer, better than
yeah,
Kershaw, better than all
it's
of these guys in the
incredible.
generation. DeGrom tops all of it, and he
Yeah,
puts up video game numbers. But when we look at Jacob DeGrom and expand that to the entire scope of Major League Baseball, the increase in injuries to the arm, whether it be elbow, shoulder, forearm,
yeah,
even in like the rib cage, just jumps up. It shoots up, and the
yeah,
names that you see, these big names that are out, not just Jacob DeGrom, Carlos Rodon hasn't pitched yet. Max Fried made a few starts, might be out until the All-Star break. Robbie Ray, former Cy Young, one start, Tommy John. Walker Bueller is still recovering from Tommy John, might not be out until September. Jeffrey Springs and Drew
jeez,
Rasmussen, two guys for the Rays that were throwing really well at the start of the year, both out for a significant portion of time. Like Lance
yeah,
McCullers just was slated to get surgery. And like if you look at like even these relievers, Liam Hendricks, who just returned
yeah. It
from
just
non-Hodgkin's
comes back, and I'm
lymphoma,
like, oh,
and now
leave the guy alone.
he has a elbow strain,
Yeah,
and he has elbow inflammation, and he's probably going to be down until like late June. Ben Joyce,
yeah,
who made
probably.
his major league debut, he felt tingling in his fingers, which probably hints to an elbow injury. IL. And Joyce is a guy who's
Yeah.
famous for throwing 105.5 in college. Like,
Yeah.
we talk about Chris Sale. Can he stay healthy?
Nope.
No,
Not
he's
at
on the
all.
shelf. Brandon Woodruff, when he's healthy, is one of the top pitchers in the game. He's on the shelf with a
Yeah.
shoulder injury. So the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So you think, why? Why is this happening? You can look at it from two big angles. The first one is pitchers are just throwing harder. These
Yeah.
guys have all the technology, all the data, all of the knowledge in how to get the most out of your body to produce as much force as possible to throw harder and harder.
Yeah.
And
But the problem is it's getting to a point where you're getting too much out of yourself.
yeah,
And that's what these guys are running into.
and these guys are chasing velo
Yeah.
when chasing velo is what's going to get you into the league. Chasing velo is what's going to get you scouted, what's going to get you drafted. A guy flashing 88 to 90, unless he's a lefty, probably not going to get very many looks. But if you flash 96, 98,
well, you talk about
digits,
a guy like Ben Joyce. I mean, you hear his name specifically because, oh boy, can that guy throw the ball hard.
and he's the first of his draft class to make his major league debut, was just drafted up as a short inning relief guy. But you have this spark plug that throws so hard. You think he can make an impact at this level. So you call him up when it's the sustainability from a guy like Marcus Stroman. I think Marcus Stroman has like 95, 96 in him, but he sits at like 90, 92 with a sinker and a slider and a curveball and a changeup, and he pitches, and he's like that is much more sustainable. And give him credit.
Well,
he's been able
welcome
to
the reason
to pitch into games.
Yeah, well, welcome to the reason why a guy like Kyle Hendricks is still around and in a starting rotation. Boy, does the professor not have any speed behind his pitches, but he has accuracy, and he knows how to work. He knows how to work a zone.
Well,
but
the
a lot of these
professor's
guys
still around because the Cubs rotation stinks. But I get
well,
your
yes,
point.
But
I get your
but
point. These guys that know how to pitch is becoming less and less common, and these scouts and these organizations
everybody
are just changing
wants
velo.
to see guys how to throw. You know, they focus on how to throw and throw fast, but you're taking some of, I don't want to say you're taking some of the skill out of pitching.
You're not,
but you're taking some of the emphasis on the skill side because everyone's so focused on speed that
I don't think that's the correct way to put it, because it is very skillful anytime a guy touches or sits triple digits, but you take the you take the artistry out of it. You look at guys like Kyle Hendricks, they call him the professor for a reason, because he's able to carve up hitters using his mind and using deception, using movement, using location, and that's becoming less and less common. When you pair these increased velocities with the pitch clock, and that is something that I don't think is talked about enough, because
that's true.
Pitching, it's like sprinting. It's done and it's over. Just right.
It's quick instantaneous bursts of, muscle usage
and
tendon
most
usage.
of these guys, they take a deliberate amount of time before the pitch clock to get their body ready, to kind of gear themselves up to throw again. It's like, Tim, if I asked you to run like a 20-yard dash, come back, and then 10 seconds later do it again, and then do that 100 times.
Yeah.
You're going to fatigue a lot quicker than if I gave you an unlimited time amount like to rest.
Yeah.
If you
whenever
have as much
you're
time
comfortable,
as you want,
basically.
Whenever you're comfortable throwing, then you can go. But this pitch clock, it's just speeding guys up. And the hypothesis is that their bodies don't have enough time to get what they need to recover in between pitches. So I think you combine those two factors, and that is creating the increase.
I didn't even really
injuries.
think about that side of things, but that makes a lot of sense, because you talk about, like, in any type of that intense quick burst type of stuff, even for those of us, you talk about like weightlifting and the amount of time like you're spent between sets when you're exerting yourself, with a lot of difficulty. You got to give yourself the proper time to rest. You're not really allowing them to get their proper time in between.
And it's like,
those bursts.
If you don't go like until like if the pitch clock runs out, then you are objectively set at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And like there is a penalty. So you're forced. And don't get me wrong.
Interesting.
Faster pace of play on the mound is good. I do it. as a pitcher myself, I like to work faster, but I try to find the balance of like keeping the defense ready around me and like
Yeah.
keeping my guys involved in the game, because if you take too long, your guys are going to get bored, and like,
Yeah.
it
You
keeps
start to lose
it
the
keeps your
mental
guys in
sharpness and
it
focus. Yeah.
when you're working faster. But the juxtaposition of the pitch clock in the major leagues and at all levels of the minors, it creates a really interesting conflict that I think needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, we talk about like statistics wise, elbow and shoulder injuries, and according to a study from Baseball Prospectus, they've
Awesome
increased
site. Awesome site, by
by
the way.
44% from just a year
Yeah, it's
ago.
crazy.
Like
That's nuts.
for a 1 year difference,
Freaking
that's kind
nuts,
of
man.
scary. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. And it it's something that I am conscious of in my own playing career.
Yeah, you have to be.
And as I'm trying to build velocity and climb, I'm also being very conscious of how do I recover from outing
Yeah,
to
you
outing, and
have to
how do
keep
I
your
attack
body
it in the
right.
weight room so I can keep my body right. Because if the body ain't a machine and built to last and it's going to break down, then what the heck is building all
Yeah.
that power for?
Yeah, you
So
can't just go out there and expect for, your body to just figure it out. You have to put yourself in a position to succeed both on the field and off the field with the way that you take care of yourself.
when it comes to the arm injuries and it comes to these pitchers that are absolute machines, there's nobody that I look up to more than Spencer Strider. He is a force of
He's
nature.
impressive.
He is an impressive guy to watch. His rise to the major leagues was meteoric. Drafted in
Yeah.
21, made his big league debut in 21. In 22, took the league by storm, should have won NL Rookie of the Year, and up until recently was the odds-on favorite to win the NL Cy Young, but he's had a
Had a
few
bit of a drop off, yeah.
clunkers. And for a guy like Spencer Strider, who I've listened to talk about pitching, the mental side of the game, mechanics, first of all, physically, that guy's a monster.
Oh,
Every
a specimen.
every
Truly.
rising pitcher wants to be him. But the size of those legs, and the mobility, it's
Yeah. The
unlike
mobility is
anything
what
I
I
have
think sets him
ever
truly apart
seen.
from a lot of those guys. Yeah.
Absolutely. But with the clunkers lately, this is the first true adversity. This is like the worst stretch of his career, in his young
Yeah.
career. And he's talked about it a bunch, like how you going to respond to adversity when chips are down. Can he make those adjustments? And the thing about Spencer Strider is he's a very cerebral guy. He micromanages and he's diligent and he understands why he's doing the things that he's doing down to like a mechanical sense. So there's no doubt he's going to look at these last two outings. Yeah. He's going to watch film and he's going to break down what he needs to do better. And in those last two outings, right, the eighth against the Mets, 4 innings pitched, 8 hits, 8 earned runs, a pair of homers given up, 8 strikeouts. The strikeouts have stayed the same, and a pair of walks. Today against Tigers, 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 home runs.
Ooh. Wow.
6 strikeouts and 2 walks. Strikeouts have stayed up. The dingers have absolutely jumped up. And watching Spencer Strider and trying to figure out why, I made a TikTok about this. So if you're this far into the episode, first of all,
go follow the TikTok.
Dude, good on you.
Yes. Absolutely.
We appreciate your view. We love that. More of that, please. But the thing that I found in the TikTok that I made about Spencer Strider is there's a very glaring mechanical inefficiency when and I'm going to grab a baseball for this. You'll get a physical demonstration for everybody watching and not just listening. When your front foot lands, ideally you want your arm like cocked up here. Yeah. So it's ready to rotate and fire. When Spencer Strider's front foot lands, his arm is flat like that.
Oh, so he then goes through essentially that.
So then you have
cock
to
afterwards
whip and come around like that, and that puts far more strain on
Yeah.
your arm and can
Because
either do
as soon as that foot goes down, then the rest of your body's trying to come with. So then
yes.
if your shoulder is the only thing that's then bringing the
when
arm
when you-
through.
when your foot lands and your body is up like this, that's when the coil comes up from the ground and you're ready to rotate. So
Yeah.
then what you want is the
Then that
arm
moves just kind of one
is
fluid motion with your
mhm,
torso.
from the ground up to the torso to the spine, where it's like a whip and it's a snap and
Yeah.
your arm is just coming along for the ride. But when your arm is down, then you gotta
Yeah.
torque it super
That
fast,
that seems like
and
a really good
you're
way to mess
late.
up your shoulder.
It's a very, even you doing it right now, it's very herky jerky.
That doesn't even feel good doing that.
No, 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 no. And it's something that I've actually countered in my mechanical experience on a mound,
Yeah.
where my arm timing has been late, and that's caused me to overcompensate and inevitably get hurt. So that small change from when your front foot lands from here to here is going to cause so many things to correct itself. And
Yeah.
it with Spencer Strider, that mechanical leak from here where he's supposed to be, but now he's down here, that has caused a dip in velocity. In his last two starts, his average fastball velocity is 95.1 miles an hour. It's typically 96.7, which is about a
Ooh.
mile and a half an hour slower. That's going to
Yeah.
make all the difference. That's
Yeah,
going to,
that does actually. You think about talking like, oh, like 1.5
but
in terms of the
in
fact he's in the
milliseconds,
90s. Yes, that actually makes a very big difference, and it honestly that makes
92 to
a
100 with major league hitters seems like a
yeah,
whole different world.
yeah,
So even though you go, oh, nine, and with the thing with Spencer Strider is he is a fastball and a slider guy, and he has a show me
mhm,
changeup. So you'll either sit the heater or the slide. You have one to two. So it allows you to sit one pitch. And the fastball, why he's been so good, is his fastball has been one of the best in Major League Baseball,
yeah,
if not the best from a metric standpoint. With that leak and the drop in velo, your fastball suffers and it makes you a lot more hittable. And that's when you see the 5 home runs in the last 2 games allowed.
yeah,
So you scratch your head and you're going, what the hell is
yeah. What
happening?
changed? Yeah.
Exactly.
Although
So there's no
you
doubt
can
that
see
he's
some of
going to
this
go
stuff.
back. He's going to fix the stuff and he's going to overcome this adversity. He's been
Yeah,
through a lot. He knows how to pitch. He knows how to get his stuff done. It's just like, and I get it. It's 2 outings. It's early. Is this a trend, or
yeah.
is this a
Is it the start
momentary
of a
bump in the
concerning
road?
trend for him, or is it just essentially a learning point? But
Yes.
like you said, I mean, to his credit, I would consider him to be one of the better or one of the best young minds when it comes to being a student of the game at that level of learning from, your experience. You talked about he'll go back and analyze essentially what has caused those changes. I have no doubt about that. But it's a matter of, will that analyzation come back and
Mm-hmm.
produce results, or will he encounter some type of issue you talk about with a shoulder or with some other type of injury first that could set him back more than just having to sort of go back and think through what's gotten you to this point.
And that's all we got for this episode of Running the Table. If you want more from us, we have tons of stuff on YouTube, and we're going to continue uploading on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple
We're
Podcasts,
putting it
and
everywhere.
everywhere, wherever you get your podcasts. So let us know what else you want us to talk about. There's a lot in the world of sports, and we're down to talk about it all. So if you want more from us, until next time, we out.